Holy Spirit, it is so good not to be in this teaching by myself. You're here. And I welcome you to have your way. Whatever you say, we will do it. I have absolute biblical proof that my Jewish people do not own the land of Israel. I know that's hard to believe, and I'll tell you something else. If you are wrong in understanding God's purpose for the Jew and Israel, you will be wrong in most end-time Bible prophecy. But if you're right on the Jew and Israel, you're about ready to hear something that is phenomenal. This whole teaching that I'm giving right now was triggered by a newspaper headline that I saw. The headline said, Australia says it will end its recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. I know I got really upset over that. So the question really is not what Australia says, not what the United States says, but what does God say? Who owns the land of Israel? I just told you, I'm Jewish. My Jewish people do not own the land of Israel. So is it the Palestinians? No, they don't own the land of Israel. Well, who owns the land if it's not the Jews and it's not the Arabs? Give me a break. Joel 3:2 in our supernatural Bible gives us the answer. I will gather, this is God speaking, all the nations. I will enter into judgment with them, with all the nations. Judgment over, I might add, this isn't here, but I'll add, judgment over this one issue, which is the next verse. Regarding my people and my heritage, Israel, that's the nations that have come against the Jew and Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up, and here's the answer as to who owns Israel. They have divided up, this is God speaking, they have divided up my land. So who owns the land of Israel? It's not the Jews. It's not the Arabs. It's God himself owns the land of Israel. Now, the greatest miracle, I believe, that you're going to read in the Bible that is the most conclusive miracle as to why the Bible is from God. It's an impossible miracle unless there's a living God. This miracle is found in the Jewish prophet Jeremiah, chapter 31, verse 35 and 36. It talks about the natural events in the world. It talks about the sun, the moon, the stars, the waves. And this is what it says. Who did all this? The Lord of hosts is his name. If those ordinances depart from before me, the sun and moon and stars and waves, if those natural events depart from before me, says the Lord, then the seed of Israel will cease from being a nation before me. Do you understand the magnitude of this? The magnitude is, if there were no Jews today, like when we got conquered and we lost in 70 AD, we lost our temple, we lost our land, we got scattered to the four corners of the earth. Every country we went to, as was prophesied in the scripture, would eventually vomit us out and we'd be raped and murdered and persecuted again. You would think every Jew in the world would have either been dead by now or would have been denying the fact that they're Jewish. But God says, as long as there's a sun and moon and stars and waves, there will be physical Jews on the face of this earth. And every time you see a Jewish person, you can say, God honors his word against impossible odds. Impossible. But God knows what's going to happen in the future. That's what I'm going to share with you, what's going to happen in the future. Well, so if God's the one that owns it, who can give someone a lease for the land of Israel? the owner. And the terms of the lease are spelled out in the Bible, and the lease is with the Jewish people. This is what it says in Psalm 105, verse 8 to 11. He, that's God, remembers his covenant, get this word, forever. And then he says, which he commanded for 1,000 generations. So there's a covenant God made forever and 1,000 generations. You'd think 2 times would be enough in the terms of the lease. Oh, who did he make the covenant with? He made it with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to Israel for an everlasting covenant. So let's see these 3 descriptions: forever, 1,000 generations, everlasting covenant with God. And here's what the covenant is over. Saying to you, that's to Israel, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose name was then changed to Israel, saying to you, I will give the land of Canaan. Meaning the terms of the lease, the owner is God, the terms of the lease are forever, 1,000 generations, and everlasting, and is a covenant, a contract from God. Now, the exact borders of Israel are going to astound you. The most conservative, I can say, is the Jewish people's lease will be at least 10 times larger than Israel right now. So if I wanted to follow God, I would not be cutting the land of Israel. I would not be dividing the land of Israel. It's God's land. I mean, who could be so foolish as to do that, to steal from God himself? I would be figuring out how the Jewish people can get more of the land that is promised. In Genesis chapter 15, 18 through 20, it has the exact dimensions. Now, another important thing, when you have a will, when you die, you better have that available so people know who gets the benefits. Well, God made sure that he would have this lease available, and you won't believe where he keeps it. Let me read this to you. Isaiah chapter 49, verse 15 and 16. This was God himself who says, this is my land, and I have given it forever, 1,000 generations, everlasting as a covenant to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, with the Jewish people. This is where he has hidden his lease. Can a woman forget her nursing child and have no compassion on the son of her womb? That'd be hard for a woman to forget. But even these may forget, Isaiah says. Yet I, this is God speaking, will not forget. See, I have carved you, that's Israel, the Jewish people, on the palms of my hands. Your walls are continually before me. Continually. That means it never stops. That means God's looking at that walls of his land continuously, 24/7. Jesus said what the devil's checkmate is. Those of us that play chess, there's something called checkmate. It is finished. It is over. It is finished for the devil. The devil has a checkmate, and this is it according to the word of Jesus himself. Matthew 23:39. Jesus, speaking to the Jewish people, says, for I tell you, you shall not see me, you will not see Jesus again, until you, Jewish people, say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And every Jew that is alive, just before Jesus returns, will say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Now, Romans chapter 11, verse 15 says something amazing. It says, in the rejection of the Jewish people for the Gentiles, It was a great blessing. But let me read this to you exactly, word for word. For if their rejection, that's of the Jewish people, means the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance mean? I mean, look at the good that occurred in our rejection, but how much greater good will occur in our acceptance? It'll mean life from the dead. It will mean a move of God's Spirit like the world has never seen before. It will mean even literally that thousands will get out of the tombs and start walking in the streets of Jerusalem. This is what happened at the resurrection of Jesus, you know. It says this in the New Covenant. But I'm saying worldwide, there's going to be a resurrection power of God's glory. And that's what Paul is talking about. We are entering what is, I've labeled, the greatest sunflower Jewish harvest in history. Millions of Jews will be reached all over the world. Why do I say that? Because God's heart is for all to believe, for none to perish. And he has a law, which he states in multiple cases. It's called the law of evangelism. By going to the Jew first, it opens up a greater door of evangelism for all people than by going to all people first. It doesn't make sense. You need God for this, but these are his words. The law of evangelism was found first when God called the first Jew, Abraham. He went to the Jew first to be a seed to reach the nations. Then, if you remember, in Romans 1:16, Paul said, I'm not ashamed of the gospel, because the gospel is the power of God unto salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first. Yes, that was the historical order, but it's also the law of evangelism. Jesus himself, when he first came to reach the world, he died for the sins of the whole world. When he first came, he said, I come only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Why? By planting that seed in the Jewish person knowing Jesus, you are extending the glory of God over the world every time you do that. Now, simultaneously with the great harvest. Why do I call it the sunflower harvest? A sunflower is one of the most hardy flowers around. There's over 1,000 seeds in every sunflower. All these seeds are going to grow in this sunflower. And here's the difference between the sunflower and any other flower. The sunflower itself bends to the sun. We bend to the sun. Wherever the sun is, we bend to the sun. Now, the anti-Semitism is increasing worldwide. I'll just tell you one little fact, because I'm a sports fan. There was an NBA basketball player that tweeted recently and endorsed a film. The only problem is the film was grossly anti-Semitic. It said blacks were the Jewish people. 6 million Jews were not murdered by Hitler. It's a fabrication, and Jews control the world. Nothing new under the sun. The devil's been using these tricks for years. And the film's views on the internet skyrocketed as a result of this sports figure endorsing and saying he believes it's true. Now, I have a fear for Australia over what they just did. But I also have a fear for America over what the last administration and the Obama administration, I'm not a political type. I used to be, but I'm not. I vote according to the Bible, and I believe everyone should if they love the country that I love, the United States of America, or whatever country that you're in. However, I want you to know that Genesis 12:3 has never changed. And God says, I will bless those who bless my people. Australia and America, hear this, and I will curse those who curse them. He's never deviated from that word. And he says it even stronger. This is my favorite translation of this verse. Zechariah chapter 2, verse 8. In the Living Bible, listen to this. He who harms you, that's Israel, sticks their finger, his finger, in Jehovah's eye. I can't think of a worse consequence to happen to someone that sticks their finger in God's eye. It reminds me, I was on an airplane many years ago as a young Jewish believer. I had an attaché case and there was a bumper sticker on it. And it said Psalm 122:6, which reads, "Pray for the peace of Jerusalem." And there was a Jewish man seated next to me. And he saw my attaché case with that bumper sticker on the outside. And he said, "Aren't you afraid, because of anti-Semitism, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem on an airplane?" And I said, "No, read the rest of the verse. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Thou shalt prosper that love thee." And you know the word in Hebrew for prosper means something that money can't buy. Here's what it means. You shall have heart peace that love Israel. The single issue in the last and final judgment of the world is spelled out in a chapter that I love, the final judgment, and the issue, and this is the most amazing thing, what I'm about ready to share with you, of the issue, the single issue for the final judgment of nations. It's found in Matthew 25. Interesting enough, Matthew 25 has two areas that interest me a great deal. The first is, remember, the 5 wise and the 5 foolish virgins. The wise were filled with oil. The foolish were just playing around, thinking business is normal. And then that same chapter talks about the separation of nations. It's a parable, so it's the separation of sheep nations and goat nations. Now, how can you be a wise virgin that's representing a sheep nation? A sheep follows the shepherd. A goat has a mind of its own. Matthew 25:40. The king will answer, "Truly I say to you, as you have done it for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you've done it for me." And then he talks about helping the needy, etc. But I looked up the word brothers in the original Greek, and this is what the word means. Brothers from the womb. Who were the physical brothers of Jesus from the womb? The physical Jew. So what is Jesus saying? I say to you, as you have done it for one of the least of these my brothers from the womb, you've done it to me. The final judgment of nations will be, what have you done with God's land? Israel. What's next for Israel and the church? What's the key to this great harvest beyond going to the Jew first? It's what I've been talking about for almost a decade now. It's the greater glory in a time of darkness, Isaiah says. Arise, shine, your light has come. The glory of the Lord has covered the nations. Paul said in Romans chapter 9, verse 3 and 4, "For I could wish that I myself were accursed from the Messiah for my brothers from the womb, my kinsmen by race, to who belongs the glory." Who does the glory belong to? It's what it says right here. The glory belongs to the Jewish people. Do you remember in the wilderness? Do you remember the pillar of fire at night and the cloud during the day and the glory on Moses' face? Of course you do. So to the Jewish people, my kinsman by race, belongs the glory. Glory causes the Jewish law of evangelism to accelerate. By going to the Jew first, you'll reach more Gentiles. But it triggers worldwide Gentile evangelism. Here's another. I'm going to give you two more glory scriptures for the Jews in particular. Isaiah 46:13. My salvation shall not linger, and I will place salvation in Zion for Israel, my glory. You almost feel the heart of God. He's saying, Israel, my glory. God himself is saying that. The greater glory and the return of Jesus gets closer, I believe, every time Israel, my glory, receives the Messiah. Now you understand a little bit about God's heart and the law of evangelism. God gave me a living word. It's a living, breathing, alive word that is going to change your life. And if you don't need a change in your life, you're meshuggah. That's a Hebrew word. It's called crazy. This whole world needs a change in direction. This whole world needs changes of a magnitude that are beyond man. This whole world needs God. There is coming for you a watershed moment. Let me repeat that. There is coming for you an instant watershed moment. The word watershed means turning point moment. A turning point moment. Your history is about to be rewritten. You're about ready to walk in a new direction because there's a new move of God's Spirit. It is not just a move of God's Spirit. It's the greatest outpouring in history of God's Spirit. The devil has made his biggest moves. He thinks he's won. It looks to me like he's won. But I'm glad that I don't go on what I see before my eyes. I only go on it is written. It is written. Some of you are saying, oh, it's too late. I don't have the right education. I don't have the money. I don't, well, you don't know all the bad things I've done in my life. But if you believe God says, this is your watershed moment, I'm going to pray right now for those that believe that. And I'm going to release his glory to be a catalyst for your watershed moment. You're ready to have your book of life come forth. You're ready to have your history rewritten. You're ready to be used by God in the mightiest move of his Spirit in the history of planet Earth. For those that want the scriptures I've stated, I would love to give you a free download of actually my notes. It's just go to sidroth.org/land. Sid, SIDROTH.org/land, LAND. And for those that are saying they're too old, a lot of people tell me to keep quiet about it. I like to brag on God. I'm sorry. It's too late for me. I want to give God all the credit for everything. I am 82 years young, and I'm telling you, I'm ready to walk into my watershed moment, and I'm telling you, you can, if you believe this word, walk into your watershed moment. Let me tell you about what God has been doing. This is at 82. You see this wall behind me? This is a video wall that is the largest video wall, secular or Christian, in the United States. We were selected to be the first ones in the United States to have it. The technology is so ingenious that there's no limit to how much we can have with our two networks. And we have actually ISN, It's Supernatural Network, on every smartphone and computer in the world, and METV, that's a network that originates right out of Israel and touches every home that owns a television set in Israel, touches the entire Middle East, and is shortly going to be put up on a satellite and touch the whole world. At 82, these two networks, I might add, they're millennial networks. What do I mean by that? Jesus is going to use it as the go-to network in the millennial. I'm convinced of that. Then we just went on two secular stations. One is Newsmax. We're on the first Sunday of every month, 9 to 10 p.m., prime time, in which I do a 1-hour supernatural special. And we're also on an Israeli television network throughout the United States called I-24. We have the It's Supernatural television show all over on television networks throughout the world. I do outreaches, just got back from Toronto. We had 230 chairs in an auditorium. Every chair is filled with a Jewish person that does not know the Messiah, or most of them were. The believers, we said, sorry the expression, we said, you got to go to the back of the bus. There weren't enough seats for the non-believers, so we put the believers in the lobby. But the non-believers filled every seat, almost 50% when the glory of God descended. This is in this studio right now. Stood up and made public professions that they were healed. These were unsaved Jews, physically healed. I can't heal anyone. Don't give me your credit. Only God can do it. His glory showed up. That same glory that's going to radiate from you and radiate from me to cause our watershed moment. And almost 100% of these unsaved 230 Jewish people stood up and made public professions of faith in Yeshua, Jesus as the Messiah. And then we have a whole cartoon series called Supernatural Sid. And I'm telling you, I'm just getting started at 82. So don't you dare give me any excuse, but I'm going to tell you, you have no right to feel sorry for yourself and no right to be a motorboat. But. No. God. This is your watershed moment. This is your moment. I want to pray for you. I'm going to pray that the same glory that came on Moses and saved a slave nation from the largest army in the world, the same glory that came on Ruth, the same glory that came on Joseph, who rescued the Jewish people, the same glory that came on Elijah, who defeated all the priests of Baal. In an instant, it was a watershed moment. The same glory that came on Queen Esther when she said, if I perish, I perish, but I'm going to the king. I'm standing up for the Jewish people. And God in heaven and Jesus were going, yay, Esther, go for it, Esther. And God in heaven and Jesus is saying, you go for your watershed moment right now. I want you to believe God for yourself, for your watershed moment. I want you to believe God for a watershed moment, no matter who wins the elections for the United States of America. Believe God for a watershed moment from whatever country you're viewing us from right now. This is your turning point. This is your history being rewritten. This is your watershed moment. Pray this prayer out loud with me and mean it to the best of your ability. Out loud. Dear God, I'm so sorry for my mistakes. I believe your precious blood washes me clean. Oh God, it's so good to be clean. It's so good to start over again. I believe that Jesus died for my sins, and by his blood, I not only was cleaned, but my sins are totally wiped away. Oh God, I make you my Savior from all of my mistakes in the past and my sins. And I make you my Lord. I want experiential knowledge with you. I agree on that living word out loud. I agree on that living word. This is my watershed moment. Fill me with your glory. Give me a fresh start. I love you, God. Amen.